morning to our esteemed viewers and welcome to your favorite morning show this morning. This is now streaming, reaching you from the Advent Cable Network Nigeria, ACNNTV. I am your uncle this morning. Already Akitunde is my name. All right, Nigeria during the 2009-2010 academic section removed the study of history from primary and secondary schools curriculum. Since the scrapping of history in our schools, the 21st century generation hardly knows what constitutes a government as a subject, and various factors to be considered, such as what system of government is Nigeria practicing, the various arms of government and their responsibilities, and so on. This is rather pitiful, especially as it denies them the know-how on how to engage the government officers at various levels. So viewers, with me, with this, we welcome you to the discussion segments of this show, where we'll be discussing the topic, the duties of the various arms of government. And still with me in the studio is Barrister Gibson Agos. Thank you for coming this morning, sir.
It's been a pleasure.
Now, what do you say about scrapping of history in our schools?
The worst thing ever happened to our education curriculum. So unfortunate. The worst thing.
That's over 12 years ago now that was done.
There was no justification for that. There cannot be any justification for such action of the government. Without history, how do we move on? Without appreciating the past, how do we move on for the future? So there's no justification for that. It has denied the present generation knowledge of the past, and has denied us the ability to push forward. So it's an unfortunate action.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any young person to even know.
Exactly.
Some people don't even know the name of past president.
Of course. Not just about history. There are a lot of history in the past that these children need to know about. There are a lot of events, both pre-colonial Nigeria, colonial Nigeria, and post-colonial Nigeria. Why would you deny those children the access to this history? It's their own right.
Well, now, in Nigeria, what kind of government system are we practicing?
This is what I get. Election also. Well, based on the provision of our constitution,
Yeah.
in a more advanced manner, we are practicing a democratic system of government.
Okay.
We are practicing a federal system of government, where there's the nation of powers. There's three arms of government.
Okay.
This
But what other government practices are out there apart from the federal?
Of course, we have unitary,
Okay.
more of powers in the middle, in the center. We have
Okay.
confederation.
Okay.
So these are all aspects of government in place.
Okay.
So, but Nigeria, we have a federal system of government in place.
Okay.
That's what we are practicing. Then, of course, the kind of government you have in place is democratic system of government, which is a popular way of taking over power from the people.
So, in this federal system of government,
Yes.
you say we have three
Arms
branches,
of
three
yes,
arms.
yes,
So,
yes.
what are these three arms?
We have the executive arm of government.
Okay.
We have the legislative arm of government. Then we have the judiciary arm of government.
Okay.
These are the three arms of government in operation, both
Okay.
at the federal, state, and then largely at the local level.
So, these arms of government, how do they operate?
Well, they operate within the provisions of the Constitution. The Constitution
Okay.
explicitly made provisions for these arms of government
Alright.
to operate, of course, taking cue from the principle already established on separation of powers,
Okay.
and then principle of checks and balances. So that's where this whole thing evolved from. So the three arms of government operates within the provision provided in Chapter 4, Chapter 5, 6, and 7, made provision for these three arms of government to operate in Nigeria at federal, state, and local level.
Local level.
So we have the legislature, which
Okay.
is the arm saddled with the task of lawmaking.
Okay.
Of course, in Nigeria, we operate a bicameral legislation, which is the Senate and the House of Representatives. That's
Okay.
two chambers of National Assembly in Nigeria.
Okay.
Some other countries operate just one, but Nigeria
Okay.
operates the lower chamber and the upper chamber and the lower chamber. Then at the state level, we also have legislative arm of government at the state level, which is just state houses of assembly. Then we have the executive, which executes the policies of the government and programs.
Okay.
Then we have the judiciary, which is the more of the courts that interprets the law as made by the legislature. So these three arms of government work on their own powers to effectively channel governance for the people.
So what kind of control system is available? How does each of these arms checkmate each other?
Yes, well, we acknowledge that we have yes, these arms control each other.
Oh, is there a superior? I mean,
no. All of them are equal. All of them are equal.
Oh.
But then the separation of power principle entails each arm of government to be independent of their own and check the workings of the other. Of course, you're aware that the legislature is saddled with the task of lawmaking. They also have huge controls from powers over the executive, which people in quotes sees as more powerful. No, the mechanism in place of the legislature over the executive is clear. Okay. Of course, you're aware that there can never be any budgetary provision from the executive without the oversight powers of the legislature. Okay. So when the president presents his budget to the executive will now scrutinize this budget and then ensure that it's passed within the provisions of the law. Okay. You're also aware, taking a cue from what happened yesterday, the Senate President's intervention in the planned subsidy removal. These are the powers of the legislature. They are the pulse of the people because the representatives of the people are in that chamber. So they carry out some series of oversight functions as clearly stated in the Constitution. Okay. These oversight functions are within the powers. In the event that there's a breach of this oversight function of the legislature over the executive, of course, the implications are there. Any action taken by the executive without the backing of the law by the legislature will be null and void. Okay. Then on the part of the executive, which represents more of like executing government policies, they also have their own measures. When they present budget to the National Assembly or the legislature, they expect this budget to be passed. When it is passed, they will not execute the programs and policies initiated in those budgets. That's the executive. So they implement programs. They, a lot of things. They carry out programs and activities in line. They execute. They are conferred with executive powers, which means powers to execute programs, activities, and other plans of the government. Then, of course, the judiciary, which is on the receiving the other end, which is more of like a stabilizing force of the two. Because in event of these two having conflict of powers and interests, they run to the judiciary for interpretation of the law. The judiciary interprets the law strictly as it's made, and they have a lot of overriding powers, which means they have the powers to say this is how this law is made, and therefore it should be still. So the judiciary, to me, and largely have been seen as a stabilizing force between these three arms of government.
Okay. So for me, who supervise the judiciary arms of government?
Like I said earlier on, these three arms of government are independent on their own. Okay. The president is the president.
No, who checkmate then?
Well, the problem with the powers of checkmating these arms of government are clear.
Okay.
For instance, you're also aware that the appointment of judges to the bench in judiciary is done by the president, and at the federal level, and then the governors at the state level. Okay. So this also means, there are provisions that how the judges are to be appointed. Now, the judiciary cannot appoint judges on themselves. It has to go through a process. When the president makes appointments of judges, nominates them, some of them, they go to the National Assembly for confirmation. You see how it works. So after confirmation, then they go back to the judiciary, and then becomes judge immediately. So these are the way it operates. Then the president too, you're also aware that after elections, the judiciary also carries out what is called post-election litigation. Okay. So this process also shows that the judiciary is now saddled with the powers to look at the outcome of the election and then determine if all processes and every legality aspect of it are followed up for the emergence of the president and the governor. So the same applies to the National Assembly. They all pass through post-election at the tribunals and then at the higher courts before they are determined if they win the election or not. So at every point, these terms of government checkmate themselves. Then the judiciary checkmates itself through a process of NJI, National Judicial Council. Okay. Sorry, NJC, sorry. Okay. National Judicial Council. This is a body saddled with internal cleansing of the judiciary. So there's a mechanism for the judiciary to cleanse itself in event of any shortcoming of any judge.
Okay, so let me find out, let's look at the case of Kano State. What is happening in Kano State? The case of the young kid that was killed. Who takes up this case? I mean, how does the government, the three arms of government now come into this and ensure that justice is delivered.
Yes, because it's a criminal matter, very terrible, so unfortunate. Our sympathies go to the family. Now, the state, the executive here will prosecute the matter to the Attorney General of the state.
Okay.
Prosecute the matter, they will take the matter to the courts. The High Court will now determine the matter. So the High Court of Kano State is saddled with the powers to determine this matter. But like you asked earlier on, they could come through prosecution powers of the AG of Kano State.
Okay.
And glad to know that the matter has already been taken to court. So the court is now saddled with the task to determine the circumstances of the matter, and then at the end of the day, we have a full trial. At the end of the full trial, we have judgments. Of course, we have conviction, and then we have the implementation of the conviction. So the executive in Kano State will carry out the prosecution of the matter before the State High Court in Kano. At the end of the day, State High Court in Kano will, although it's the outcome of the judgment, the prosecution will now come with the judgment. So in this instance, the legislature, what the legislature in Kano State will do in this instance is to come up with some laws that will regulate and then checkmate the existence of some of these schools, because the schools are within the purview of Kano State jurisdiction. So the legislature will come up with some laws.
Okay.
Of course, they also aware that Kano State government has ordered for that school in question to be closed, and other measures are in place. So it's, the whole time of governments are working in synergy to ensure that such thing will not repeat itself in Kano State again.
So looking at the issue of police or military invading the House of Judges in Nigeria, can that be termed as the executive checkmating the judiciary?
No, it's aberration of the powers of conferred executive. There's no power on the executive to carry out such action. We saw it last 2 years ago or 3 years ago on the residence of about 3 Supreme Court Justice, Justice Nguta, who is late now, Justice Justice Nguta, Justice Okoro, and the other one. Then, of course, last year we saw it in Justice Redadele's house in Abuja too. This aberration, this is a violation of powers. It's the worst thing that have happened. It's not, it cannot be condoned in a democratic setting. There's no provision in our constitution that says the executive have any powers over any influence, any extra power over the judiciary. The judiciary largely is seen as the last of the common man. It's also seen as a stabilizing force. And if you intimidate judiciary within a government setting, you have already, by implication, intimidate the whole contract large. So the judges should work within the powers given to them. You don't go to the judge's house in the midnight to intimidate him or her. It's a violation of his rights. It's a violation of the principle of justice. So there's no power given to the executive to carry out such action in the first instance. It is violation of the rights. Glad to know that the means are now in place to unravel what led to that invasion of the Satellite's house. Of course, we saw that Nigerians reacted angrily to it. We expect to have a very unbiased judiciary, very strict to their work, because at the end of the day, when some government have any issues, they come to judiciary. So when you begin to go to the judge's house and think you can embarrass him or her demanding for this, you don't have such powers. You don't have such powers. The judges should work strictly within the powers given to them. They don't have any business with you. They are doing the work as laid out in the Constitution and, of course, in the relevant legislations that give them such powers to do.
And now looking at the lawmakers, looking at the lawmakers, what constitutes how a lawmaker can be recalled?
Well, the process of recalling the lawmaker is in Nigeria. We have not really had it.
So tedious, yes, because we've not had
really achieved. We have not really had it, seen it coming. We have not really effectively applied that powers. Yeah, it lies more with the people. Okay. So then the people demands for it. But in Nigeria, of course, you know it's always political. So when you see any lawmaker being recalled or about to be recalled from either the National Assembly or State House Assembly, it's basically political. We had it in the case of Kogi State during the era of, of course, this incumbent government and, of course, Menaya. It failed. So it's more political. But the powers is a good means of checkmating or controlling, checkmating when a lawmaker is not doing well. So the recalling process gives the people that elected him in the first instance to recall him back based on 1 or 2 things he has not been, was able to do. So, but largely Nigeria is more political. Now
let's go to the incident of NSAS.
Okay.
And I'm bringing this just to find out what is the role of executive and setting up a judicial panel of inquiry. How does that work?
Yes, the executive as I said, implements policies.
Yeah.
And of course, programs and policies. Of course, you're aware that the Nigerian police constitutes that panel. Of course, that panel has a lot of best of brains, minds at Judiciary. It's within the powers of the executive to come up with such action, and then at the end of the day, implement it. However, the outcome of the committee's reports and implement it. So there's no violation of, there's no negation or eroding of powers on the part of the executive to constitute such panels. It's in order.
So, this is where I'm going. Okay. When you are constituting a judicial panel of inquiry in a case that involves you as an executive.
Yes.
Because I mean that's just what we see with the issue of the NSAS.
Yes.
The Lagos state government who constituted the panel is also
a party
to the issue.
Yes.
And we saw the end of the whole show.
Of course. Yeah. That's one of the things you also observations you made. Because in this instance you are the judge, you also the party. So how will you coordinate? It's a wrong one because we expect the...
Okay, we have one caller from Adamawa. So good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead with your question.
Okay. This legal issue is being discussed on the live streaming now. I wanted to know that issue that happened in Lagos in Kano, where the young girl was murdered. The person being suspected to be entitled to the legal counsel.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. He's entitled to a legal representative. Yes. If he doesn't have...
Hello?
Yes, he's entitled to a legal representative. Yes, he's entitled to it.
I hope your question has been answered. All right.
I think the question is that, yes, every accused is entitled to a lawyer. That's the provision of the Constitution. And in the event, if he doesn't have the resources to hire a lawyer, the legal aid council should provide one for him, free.
Oh, the legal aid council?
Yes, it's a statutory body in Nigeria that is entitled to the provision of lawyers, free for Nigerians, Nigerians to prosecute the matter. So he's entitled to a lawyer.
Wow.
If the event he doesn't have the money to hire a lawyer, then the legal aid council should provide one for him.
Wow.
Because as far as he's still an accused, he's not convicted yet until the court.
And you know, he did the stuff because he said he doesn't have money.
So it cannot be.
Because I'm reading the mind of the caller from Adamawa.
Yes, I agree with him. He's a lawyer.
I'm reading his mind. He wanted to know if somebody will go and represent.
Yes.
But yes.
Maybe we have some ingredients behind that action.
Wow.
No matter his reasons, so justified to have killed that lovely girl.
Wow.
So justified.
Wow.
So fortunate.
Very unfortunate. Yes. So, all right. Now, what will be your final take in citizens knowing the responsibilities of this? Because this is an election. This is a pre-election year, and it's always good that people understand this thing. A lot of people focus more on the executive, who becomes the president, while some people don't hardly know who is their representative in the house, or their local government chairman, or their councillor.
Everything about
Yeah. So, what will you be saying to Nigerians as we close the show?
I'm glad to know that there is already a course or subject of civic education in place.
Okay.
Nigerians should know more about the way they are governed. Nigerians should know more about the way everything about them. I agree with you that there's need to know. Every child and every Nigerian should know is your right to demand for good governance. And good governance can only be demanded when you know how governance works. When you know that at every beginning of every year, there's already a budget. You should track how that budget affects your constituents. You should also track. You should always have access to your representative, either at state and national level, and ask questions about policies and programs that affect you. If you don't ask this question, if you don't make move on this whole thing, then everything will be done in vacuum. So it's your right to know, it's your right to ask questions, it's your right to demand for good governance from the executive, from the legislature, and even the judiciary. If you have any observation about any judgment of the court, you make your observation known. There are provisions for this in the Constitution, there are provisions for this in our legislations. It's not a matter of trying to say, I'm not interested. If you're not interested, for instance, like I keep saying, yesterday, the National Assembly intervened because that is for our Nigerians. They intervened and said, no, we can't allow this subsidy to be removed. That will cause more hardship on our people. Because if that program had gone up for the executive, some of them will not be going back to their houses in the villages. So it's like the issue of insecurity now. Most people have nationals are not going back to the villages for Christmas and the Salah. People are now staying in Abuja because of fear. But when you have a good governance in question, when you provide jobs for the teeming youths, when you provide access to good governance, when you provide everything that's needed for Nigeria to move forward, then we begin to deal with the issue of security and insurgency. Nigerians begin to have confidence in governance. That's what we are lacking.
So people should demand.
It's your right to demand. It's your right to demand for every child. Yes, every law made in place, on demand for it. Every action of government, demand for it. It's not about the executive only. Demand from National Assembly. Demand for members of National Assembly, House of Rep members.
When they come home, instead of asking for money,
you demand. Yes, they always ask. They always make provision for constituency projects. How many constituencies have been implemented in your area? Have you asked questions? This road, this water, this these are things you should demand for. It's your right. It's not about, because you voted them into power. If you don't, that's why you need to use it as your power bargain, not about asking money from these members. It's the height of responsibility on your part.
Barrister Gibson, thank you very much for this enlightenment this morning. For
these comments, because this is more fundamental government questions.
Yes. when we were growing up in school.
What is government?
All right, thank you very much, viewers. It's Thomas Jefferson who said that government is the strongest of which every man feels himself a part. And until we all begin to feel so, we won't stop demanding that which is rightfully ours. Okay, this is where we call it a day on this program. Till we come again on the show tomorrow. Remember to be law-abiding citizen and to demand your rights. You need to register so that you can vote, and that is the first step of being part of the government. I'm Korede Akitude. God bless you and have a wonderful day.